The loft in Noy Valley was full of laughter and the sound of glasses clinking that night. I'm Cressida, and what happened at my older sister Viveka's housewarming party still feels like a dream every time I think about it. The room was full of family and friends, all excited to celebrate her big moment. She stood right in the middle of the living room holding her glass up high, smiling proudly. Then she spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Finally, I bought my own place without help from anyone. Everyone clapped and cheered. People whistled and said how proud they were of her hard work. The energy in the room felt happy and exciting. Mom smiled from the side. Dad nodded with his proud look. Viveka soaked it all in, enjoying the praise. I stayed sitting for a moment longer than I should have. Then I stood up. My voice was calm and steady, cutting through the noise like a sharp knife. I looked at her and said, "You mean the loft I bought with my savings?" Suddenly everything went quiet. Mom almost choked on her drink, holding the glass shakily. Dad froze with a blank look. Viveka's face turned bright red and her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The room stayed silent, heavy, waiting for what would happen next. What would you do if you were me? Tell me in the comments below. I read every single one. Growing up, the difference between me and my sister was always very clear. Mom and Dad always treated Viveka like she could do no wrong. Every report card she brought home got glowing praise. They hung her drawings on the fridge and framed her certificates on the wall. They celebrated her straight A's with family dinners at nice restaurants and bought her new clothes whenever she wanted. Viveka got big birthday parties with custom cakes and invited many friends. I only got quiet family meals at home. The pattern continued through middle school. Viveka's soccer trophies filled the hallway, and her name appeared in the local paper more than once. Mom would call relatives to share the news, excited and proud, while Dad nodded and said Viveka had inherited his drive. I watched it all from the side and learned early that attention came only when someone performed well. I got much less notice, so I stopped expecting it. When I brought home good grades, Mom smiled quickly and said I should keep it up, then turned back to Viveka's latest accomplishment. Dad would pat my shoulder and say I was doing fine, then ask about Viveka's next game or recital. After a while, I stopped showing them my report cards because the reaction never changed. Instead, I learned to handle things on my own. I packed my lunches, walked to school when the bus was late, and figured out how to fix small problems at home without asking for help. Being independent became normal because depending on anyone felt risky. I never complained out loud. Complaining would have meant admitting it hurt me, and I didn't want that. When we were little, Viveka and I shared a bedroom. We whispered secrets after lights out and planned imaginary adventures together. Those nights felt safe and close, like sisters should always feel. She braided my hair in the morning and defended me when kids teased me at school. I trusted her completely back then. Over time, our closeness started to fade. Viveka began to see me less as a sister and more as someone who could help her. She borrowed my clothes without asking, used my allowance when hers ran out, and expected me to cover for her when she broke rules. The change happened slowly, so I almost didn't notice at first. By high school, she stopped inviting me to hang out with her friends and started treating me like an assistant instead of a sister. I noticed but stayed quiet, hoping the old connection would come back if I gave her space. My best friend Eulalie was the only person who truly understood what I lived with every day. We met in 7th grade during a group project and stayed close ever since. Eulalie listened without judging me whenever I wanted to talk about the differences at home. She never told me to fight back or confront my parents. She just sat with me, asked questions, and reminded me that my feelings were real, even if no one else noticed them. Having her made everything bearable. She never tried to fix my family situation. She just made sure I knew I was not alone in seeing how differently we were treated. Those years shaped me. I learned to value my own effort because no one else would. I built habits of discipline and control that helped me through college and work. Meanwhile, Viveka kept receiving support without ever having to prove she deserved it. The difference grew bigger every year. Still, I kept moving forward on my own. Looking back now, I realized that learning to be independent was the only way to protect myself from disappointment. I didn't choose it out of anger. It was simply the only path when all other doors stayed closed. 6 years ago, our paths started to separate even more. Viveka got her first office job at a marketing firm downtown. Her salary seemed big for someone just out of college. She moved into a trendy apartment in a lively neighborhood, furnished it with expensive-looking furniture, and filled her weekends with brunch at rooftop restaurants. Traveling became her favorite hobby. She booked trips to Europe twice a year, posted pictures from cafes in Paris and coasts in Italy, and came back with stories about fancy hotels and wine tastings. Her clothes were expensive too. She filled her closet with designer brands, wore new outfits for every event, and didn't hesitate to spend money on sales. Eating out became normal. She chose fancy restaurants with long waits and shared plates that cost more than my weekly groceries. Her life looked easy from the outside, but it needed a lot of money, which she got without much effort. Meanwhile, I took extra shifts at the small design studio where I started as an intern. I stayed late to finish work, did freelance projects on weekends, and slowly built a small savings fund. Every paycheck went straight into savings after paying rent, utilities, and groceries. I cooked at home, bought secondhand furniture, and skipped social outings that cost money. I tracked every dollar in a spreadsheet, set goals for monthly savings, and didn't touch it unless necessary. My income was smaller than Viveka's, but my careful saving made a big difference. Mom and Dad regularly helped Viveka with money. They sent her money for plane tickets, covered her credit card bills after shopping sprees, and helped with apartment deposits. These transfers happened quietly. They believed it was helping her grow. I heard about these conversations secondhand when Mom mentioned Viveka needed a little extra money. I handled everything on my own without asking for help. When my car broke, I paid for repairs myself and worked overtime to refill my savings. When tuition for a course was due, I paid it and adjusted my budget for the next few months. Big plans like buying my first place or saving for retirement were all my responsibility. Being independent gave me quiet happiness because it was all mine. No one else could claim it or take it away. The difference between Viveka and me grew bigger each year. Viveka's social media showed her new experiences, while my days followed a steady routine of work and saving. She celebrated milestones with fancy dinners and group trips, while I felt proud when my savings grew. Mom and Dad kept supporting Viveka without pause, thinking her lifestyle meant success. I focused on stability, knowing that real security came from self-reliance, not appearances. A year ago, things changed for Viveka. She started to owe a lot of money on her credit cards because she kept spending more than she had. The balance grew as she booked fancy restaurants, ordered expensive delivery, and bought things she didn't need but wanted. Interest charges piled up, making small purchases turn into big problems she struggled to pay. Even when she tried to manage her money, it was too late. She would stress about bills and spend hours on her laptop trying to figure out how to pay everything. I noticed her anxiety and wanted to help, but I also remembered everything I had done on my own. She had never asked me for help before, and I wasn't sure if now she would understand that the money she spent had consequences. Meanwhile, I continued to save, plan, and budget. My apartment wasn't as fancy as hers, but it was mine. I didn't owe anyone money, and I could sleep at night knowing that I had worked hard for everything I had. Every dollar I saved, every choice I made to skip something fun for later had a purpose. My independence was like a shield. No one could take it away from me. It was strange seeing Viveka struggling. People thought she had it all. From the outside, she looked happy and carefree. Her Instagram was full of smiles, trips, and fancy meals. But I knew the truth behind the photos. She spent beyond her means, piled up debt, and relied on Mom and Dad to cover for her. She had learned a different kind of independence, a fragile one built on someone else's money. I thought about all the times I had helped her, covered for her, or let things slide silently. I didn't do it to punish her. I just wanted to keep my life simple, safe, and in my own hands. It felt like my reward for years of quiet work and careful planning. Even now, I remembered the night at the loft. Everyone looked at me with shock when I spoke. Viveka didn't know how to respond. I wasn't trying to humiliate her. I was showing the truth. I had saved, I had worked, I had planned, and I had earned the loft. It was mine. Mom and Dad were quiet after that moment. I could see the surprise in their eyes and maybe a little guilt. Not because they didn't love me, they did, but because they hadn't noticed the quiet work I had done for years. They celebrated Viveka's wins loudly, but mine were private victories. And now, finally, everyone knows. I realized that life isn't about who gets the loudest applause. It's about who works quietly, who builds their life one step at a time, and who keeps going even when nobody is watching. That was me. And that loft, that space full of light and hope, was proof. Even though Viveka and I had been so close as kids, life had taught us different lessons. She learned to rely on others and I learned to rely on myself. Both paths had their struggles, but mine gave me strength. I knew that whatever happened next, I could handle it. I had already learned how to build my own life, protect it and celebrate it quietly, but proudly. At first, she spoke about her money problems as if they were small and not very serious. She would say it like it was a little inconvenience, something she could manage quickly. But slowly things got worse. The bills kept coming and each one asked for more money than the last. At first she paid some of them, then she started missing a few due dates. She told herself, "I will pay it soon. I will catch up next week." But soon the problem began to grow quietly, little by little, until it was so big that it was impossible to ignore. Even though she owed more and more money, Viveka never let anyone see that she was struggling. She kept showing everyone a happy and successful life online. She posted pictures of fancy dinners at very expensive restaurants, places with big lights and delicious food. She would write things like, "treating myself after a long, hard week," as if everything was perfect. She also shared stories of renting luxury cars for weekend trips. In these pictures she stood next to shiny, fast cars and behind her the oceans sparkled under the sun. Her social media looked amazing, like the life she had was perfect. She wore beautiful clothes that she bought with borrowed money. She went on trips and experiences she couldn't actually afford on her own. Her friends and followers commented with envy, saying how lucky she was and how cool her life seemed. They had no idea that behind all the pictures she was struggling to pay her bills and manage her debts. Viveka never showed this side of her life to anyone. Instead, she tried even harder to look successful. She acted confident because she wanted people to believe that everything was fine, even when it really wasn't. One night she sent me a long message that explained her situation in more detail than ever before. She said she had found a perfect loft in a neighborhood called Noah Valley. The apartment had very tall ceilings, old brick walls, and big windows with a view that made every morning look beautiful. But the problem was the down payment. It cost more money than she had after paying off her existing bills. He asked me for a big loan. She promised she would pay it back once her career improved and she could afford to pay me back safely. The amount she asked for was nearly all the money I had saved over many years. I had saved that money by being careful, skipping vacations and making small sacrifices. She said this loan would change her life for the better. She said that owning a home would give her roots in the city she loved, and that it would help her feel secure. The next day Mom called me. Her voice was a mix of worry and insistence. She said that Viveka had been working hard and deserved a chance to prove herself. Mom told me that the apartment was a smart investment because it would help Viveka build equity, which is money that grows in value over time instead of paying rent to someone else. She reminded me about how our family always helps each other in times of need. She said, "Now it's my turn to help." The conversation lasted a long time. Mom gave example after example of Viveka's hard work and how important this apartment was for her future. She ended by saying that she knew I would do the right thing. Later that week, Dad called me as well. He spoke in his usual clear and direct way. He said that Viveka had a real problem and helping her now would prevent bigger problems in the future. He reminded me that I had always been careful with money and that I could afford to help without risking my own security. He also said, "Families stick together during tough times." This is one of those times. The pressure from both my parents felt steady and gentle, not forceful, but it still carried the weight of expectation. They framed the request as something reasonable, something necessary, and something only I could provide. I spent many sleepless nights thinking about it. My savings were years of careful planning, skipped vacations, and small sacrifices. Giving Viveka the money would delay my own plans, maybe for many years. But refusing felt like breaking an unspoken family rule. I reviewed my budget many times, calculated exactly how long it would take to rebuild the fund, and thought about what could happen if Viveka failed to pay me back. I considered all the risks carefully, weighing the possible outcomes in my mind. I imagined how happy Viveka would be if I said yes, but I also imagined how difficult it would be for me if she couldn't repay the money. After many long nights of thinking and worrying, I finally decided to send her the full amount. Sending the money felt heavy, final, and strange. I told myself it was a one-time act of support. I promised myself it would not become a habit. Once the money was in her account, I felt a strange mix of relief and nervousness. I hoped that this one action would be enough for her to succeed. But the requests did not stop. Within days, Viveka messaged me again. This time she asked for more money to cover furniture delivery fees. She said that the furniture she had chosen was too large, and the store refused to waive the extra shipping costs. The amount was smaller than the first loan, but it was still money I had not planned to spend. A week later, she messaged again asking for money to pay the apartment management fees. She said the building association required an upfront payment for common area maintenance, which she had forgotten during closing. Each request came with a short explanation, always framed as a temporary problem that would soon be fixed. She never mentioned the first sum or any plan to repay the money I had already given her. The requests kept coming smaller and smaller. She asked for money to throw pillows, wall art, and even a special light fixture she insisted would complete the apartment perfectly. In every conversation, she avoided mentioning the money's true source. She acted like everything she was buying came from her own pocket. When I asked her casually how the apartment was going, she would talk about the sunlight streaming in through the windows or the view she could see in the mornings. She spoke about decorating decisions as if she had paid for everything herself, never mentioning the money I had given her. Phone calls stayed light and happy. Text messages were full of emojis, excitement, and enthusiasm. But none of them included any real thanks or acknowledgement of the support I had given her. Her Facebook page turned into a showcase of the loft's progress. She posted pictures of the empty rooms before any furniture arrived. Then she shared pictures of boxes and half-decorated spaces. Each caption made it seem like she had done everything on her own. One picture of the kitchen island said, "Turning this blank canvas into home all by myself." Another picture of the living area said, "Hard work pays off. Finally living my dream." Her friends and followers commented with hearts and praises. They said how inspiring she was and asked for tips on how to budget for big purchases. Viveka replied with polite thanks, saying only that she had worked hard and sacrificed to get where she was. Her posts made it look like she had achieved everything entirely by herself, without any outside help. Viveka sent the housewarming invitation to family and close friends. The card had a clean photo of the apartment's front door, complete with a welcome mat she had bought herself. The text on the card read, "Come celebrate my new home that I built with my own hands." She added details about the date, time, and dress code. She said she couldn't wait to show everyone what she had accomplished. I read the invitation several times, feeling a heavy weight in my chest. I chose to remain silent. I did not reply. I viewed her posts without liking or commenting. I scrolled past the invitation, keeping my reactions private. I wasn't angry, but I was very tired. Speaking up would have meant confronting everything at once, and I wasn't ready for that yet. Watching quietly became my way of protecting my peace. Each new post, each casual request, added another layer of distance between us. I stayed on the sidelines, letting her craft the story she wanted while I tried to process everything. The night of the housewarming party arrived. People filled the loft with conversation, laughter, and music that bounced off the high ceilings. Everyone moved around with drinks in hand, admiring the space. Some guests came early to help set out trays of appetizers, while others brought bottles of wine or small gifts wrapped in elegant paper. The room was filled with energy, making people forget their worries for a few hours. Viveka greeted everyone with hugs and laughter, showing them the kitchen, balcony, and all around the apartment. She moved from guest to guest, making sure no one felt left out. She refilled drinks, shared stories about decorating and renovating, and accepted compliments with a smile. Guests commented on every detail they liked. One cousin ran her hand along the exposed brick walls and said it gave the apartment character. Another guest stood near the large windows and said how alive the city looked at night. A family friend who worked in real estate said the location was rare and special. Viveka smiled at every comment, thanking people and sharing small stories about the renovations. Every compliment made it seem like she had done it all herself. Eventually, Viveka moved to the center of the living room. She tapped a glass with a spoon to get everyone's attention. The chatter quieted and all eyes turned toward her. She raised her drink and said clearly, "Thank you all for being here tonight. This place means everything to me. Finally, I bought my own home without help from anyone." The room erupted in applause. Guests cheered and raised their glasses. Some called out words of encouragement, clapping and smiling. Mom stood near the kitchen doorway with a proud smile, while Dad nodded from his spot on the couch. The noise swelled for several seconds before settling into a warm hum of agreement. Viveka looked around the room, clearly satisfied and happy. I had stayed at the edge of the crowd until then. When the clapping began to fade, I stepped forward just enough to be seen. My voice carried across the quieting room, letting her know I was there. Even as the party continued, I stayed calm, observing quietly. Each detail, each piece of furniture, each comment from guests reminded me of the complicated mix of feelings inside me. I felt happy for Viveka but also tired, frustrated, and a little hurt. She had presented the apartment as completely her own achievement, and the truth was different. As the evening went on, guests laughed, danced, and enjoyed the food and drinks. Viveka moved gracefully through the crowd, making everyone feel welcome. She told small stories about how she decorated each room, how she chose the furniture, and how she imagined herself living there. Every story, every laugh, every compliment built the picture she wanted the world to see. A self-made success, a young woman achieving her dream all on her own. I looked right at Viveka and said, "You mean the loft I bought with my savings?" Everyone went quiet. The clapping stopped immediately. Mom's smile froze on her face and her hand stopped halfway to her mouth. Dad shifted where he was standing, holding his glass like it had suddenly become very heavy. Viveka's eyes got wide and she held her glass tighter. A few people looked at each other, unsure if they had heard what I said correctly. Someone in the back whispered something quietly, but no one said it loud enough for everyone to hear. My words hung in the air. They were clear and true and everyone felt their weight. Viveka was the first to react. She forced a small laugh, but it didn't sound real. "Cressida, come on. That's not funny," she said. She tried to sound cheerful, but her voice cracked a little at the edges. Mom walked closer and put her hand on Viveka's arm, whispering something to her. I couldn't hear what she said. Dad cleared his throat and his face got a little darker. The room stayed quiet, waiting to see what would happen next. No one tried to go back to celebrating. The mood had changed forever and there was no way to take my words back. After that night, things could never go back to the way they were before. Mom and Dad couldn't defend Viveka in front of family and friends who had seen everything. They stayed quiet during the long, awkward silence that followed my words. They looked at other people but didn't try to explain anything or argue. The room stayed tense for the rest of the night. People tried to talk in small ways or found excuses to leave early. Mom tried to make things normal by offering more drinks, but her hands shook a little as she poured. Dad stayed away from the center of the room and started clearing plates that didn't need to be cleared. Neither Mom nor Dad came to me or Viveka to fix things. They usually tried to protect her, but now in front of everyone they couldn't. Everyone saw the truth. Viveka had no choice but to tell everyone the truth about the money. A few weeks later, at another family gathering, relatives asked about what had happened at the party. Viveka sat at the dining table. Her voice was low and shaking. She explained that she had used the money I had saved over many years. She said it was a loan she wanted to pay back, but she didn't say when or how. She didn't make excuses. She didn't blame anyone else. People listened quietly. Some nodded slowly. Some looked away. Everyone now saw her achievements differently. She didn't cry, but it was clear she was trying very hard to stay calm, holding tightly onto the edge of the table. This was the end of the story she had been telling. Viveka sold the loft to pay back all the money. It took months. She worked with real estate agents, had open houses, and made deals that gave her less money than she had hoped. Finally, a couple from another part of the city bought it. She signed the papers in a small office and handed over the keys she had once been proud of. The sale gave me back all the money I had given her and even covered some extra costs. She didn't make a fuss or send messages about it. The chapter was over. After that, our relationship ended completely. We stopped talking, stopped sending messages, and didn't acknowledge each other at family events. Viveka came to gatherings when she had to, but she sat far away and left early whenever possible. I did the same, sitting on the opposite side. We stayed quiet. It wasn't because of a big fight, but because we both knew things could never be the same. Family members noticed and stopped asking us to put on makeup. They accepted that the distance was the new normal. Viveka moved into a small rental apartment on the other side of town. It was a one-bedroom apartment with simple furniture and street parking. She packed her things into boxes and left the loft behind, never looking back. Her friends who had celebrated her success slowly stopped talking to her. Some sent polite messages, but most stopped contacting her. She lost her place in the social group she had worked hard to join. Invitations to events stopped coming. People whispered quietly about what had happened instead of talking about her achievements. The change showed in her online posts and the way she acted in public. Life had become different for her, slowly changing in ways she didn't expect. These days I live on my own. The money Viveka returned let me buy a small one-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood across the bridge. It's not very big, but it's enough to feel comfortable. Sunlight comes in through the windows and the street outside has trees. I furnished it slowly, picking things that fit my budget and what I liked. Nothing fancy, just warm and useful. The kitchen has enough space for cooking meals I enjoy. The living room has a cozy sofa where I read or work at night. I pay the mortgage every month using the habits I learned over the years. The routine is steady and comforting. I make all the choices myself. No one else controls anything. No one else takes credit. Being independent makes me quietly happy. I wake up every morning without worries about what others expect from me. The apartment is mine and I can decorate however I want. I put in plants that grow well in the sunlight, books I've collected, and art from local artists I like. The simplicity feels freeing. I no longer change what I do to please others. My days go at my pace. I have time to think, exercise, and enjoy hobbies I had put aside. I can take small trips on weekends or join classes that interest me without worrying about money. The change is small but powerful. It's a shift from just getting by to feeling at ease. The biggest lesson I learned is, never trust family blindly when money is involved. Always protect your own money no matter who the other person is. When kindness is taken advantage of, the hurt goes beyond money. It breaks trust, leaving emptiness where connection used to be. I learned that boundaries are not selfish. They are needed to respect yourself and have healthy relationships. Giving without rules invites problems, and problems can destroy what you tried to support. I understand now that real generosity needs respect. If respect is missing, stepping back is the only honest choice. This realization came slowly, but it settled deeply. It changed how I deal with everyone from that point forward. Now I think more carefully about people I let into my life. I don't assume everyone will be fair or honest. I still help people, but I make sure I protect myself first. I learned to say no when I need to. I learned that it is okay to step back if someone is not treating me fairly. It does not make me mean or unkind. It makes me strong. I also learned that independence is valuable. Having my own space and making my own decisions feels amazing. I do not have to explain myself to anyone. I do not have to worry about what others think. I feel safe, comfortable, and free. Every morning when I wake up, I feel proud that I built this life with my own hard work. Even though losing Viveka as a sister was sad, it taught me important lessons. I know now that being generous is not just about giving money or gifts. It is about giving in ways that are fair and respected. Giving without boundaries can hurt you and damage relationships. Respect and honesty are more important than appearances or social standing. I am calmer now. I plan my days carefully. I focus on things that matter to me. I enjoy cooking my meals, reading my books, and arranging my apartment just the way I like. I take walks in my neighborhood. I sometimes visit nearby towns on weekends. I even take classes that I find interesting, learning new skills and hobbies. Life is slower, but it is peaceful and happy. I know now that trust is precious. Once it is broken, it is hard to fix. I also know that boundaries are strong and good. They protect people and make relationships better. I live with these lessons every day. They remind me to be careful but also to enjoy life fully.